When you look at this system, you might be tempted to immediately assume that this is a Tandy 4000. And you wouldn't be too far off to assume that. But that's not what it is. It's a digital DECStation 425C that, yes, looks exactly the same as a Tandy 4000. So, my best guess is that Digital OEM the Tandy 4000 for Tandy. And that's that. Or maybe it was the other way around, I don't know. But either way, you get a nondescript front panel here. Just the model. A key lock, which is fortunately in the unlocked position. There's a reset switch here, which we'll take a look at when we get the cover off. It's a very interesting reset switch design. Two 5¼ bays. Unfortunately, this thing did, at one point, at least as far as I would assume, have a 5¼ floppy drive. That is long since gone, and so are the rails, so I don't really have any way with which to add or re-add the 5¼ floppy drive. We do also get a hard drive down here, which we'll take a look at in just a minute, and a 5¼ floppy with a floppy in the drive that the purpose of which will become readily apparent when I power the system on. And of course, here is the power switch. Turn the machine around to see a little bit more. I had to stop the camera to turn the machine around because this thing is obscenely heavy. I kid you not, it's probably about as heavy as an IBM PS2. I'm not really sure why or how this is, because most of the cabinet is made of plastic. Now this is metal right here. The front is plastic, the rear is plastic. It's a lot of plastic, but I guess there's a lot of stuff crammed inside. And it's certainly heavy grade steel, so it certainly stands to reason, but still, wow, is it ever heavy. Anyway, we can see the AC input and output. This is, of course, an AT class system, so it has both. There were some ATX systems that did too, some really early ones, where the power supplies were basically AT power supplies with soft power grafted onto them. There, of course, is a voltage switch, which tells you this is what it's set for, and if you need this, you should probably set it and check it. Usually those stickers were removed, for whatever reason this one was not. See Instruction Manual for Power Cord Selection Instructions. Now, what instruction manual? Of course, that's long gone. There's the cooling fan. You get a parallel port, a 9-pin serial, and PS2 mouse and keyboard, and that is it. There's nothing else built onto the motherboard. So you need to have your own video card, which that's what this is right here. And this one also, as you can clearly see, has an outboard SCSI card installed as well. Now, something about this video card probably catches your eye. You look at this down here and think, gee, what's that? You know, this is VGA, but that's a 9-pin D-sub connection. This is one of those, I wouldn't call it a transition card, but it's one of those cards that can do both the newer VGA as well as the older EGA, maybe even CGA and monochrome as well. It's a multi-mode card, so you could drive an older monitor with this upgraded video card. And I believe these also supported, some of them did anyway, they supported additional modes by, playing around with the synchronization and the various specs of these standard. You could cheat a couple of additional video modes out of an older monitor. So you didn't have to pay for an upgraded VGA monitor, and you could get some upgraded graphics. That's really what the point of these were. I think this is S-Video up here. At least that would be my guess. Or maybe a light pen connection, something similar. Let's pop the cover. Alright, with the cover off, we now see lots of interesting things. Number one, check out the size of this power supply. Now, normally when you think 486, you think, oh, it's a baby AT design. It's got, the usual size power supply. No, this is a standard AT. So this thing takes up probably a good fifth of the case. Like, seriously, this thing is massive. And I don't even know what the rating is, because it doesn't really say on it anywhere. You've got these stickers that say, do not dispose of battery unit in fire or water, which is certainly very interesting. So it makes you wonder if there's more than just a power supply in here. I might have to see if I can pop the cover on that. It looks like doing so would be an incredibly tedious proposition, so I may not bother. But either way, So we have that as our first little interesting thing. There are two 3.5-inch bays, one here and one here. You may have seen the knockout on the front of the case. So you could have two 3.5-inch floppy drives if you really desired to have that. Of course, here's the cable. So it looks like it is a triple device cable. Not that you could actually have 3 devices on the average bus. Usually you were limited to 2. I think there were some 386 systems where you could have 3. There was a specific Intel chipset for that, but I don't remember what the model of the Intel chipset was. Down there is our hard drive. I don't remember who makes it. Might be able to tell from the front here. It's a Seagate drive. Look at that. Right out in the open. Let's see, what size is this? I have a serial number, a lot number, a part number, but I can't really tell. I don't see a model number on it. It's probably embedded there on the side, so when we power it up we'll have to figure out what size it is. This motherboard is very interesting. We can see a number of chips and technologies supporting chips here. There's the BIOS right down there. I believe that this thing is a Ward BIOS base, possibly Phoenix. If you come over here, you can see these 2 slots right here, and this is for the RAM. This is actually very interesting because it looks like this is only a 16-bit design. Maybe not. It might actually be 30. There might be 32 lanes on those. I'm certainly not going to sit here and count them. But the reason why I mention that is because if you remember the Corel 386, these particular slots here were actually combined with these ISA expansion slots. So you basically lost out on 2 ISA expansion slots, but you could get 32 bits of addressing through that. And these are 16 bits wide, 16-bit ISA slots. All of them are 16-bit ISA. Except for one, which we'll come back to here in a second. But to me, it looks like these are 16 bits wide, which is very interesting because we've got a Intel, just a regular Intel 486SX CPU on this, as far as I know anyway. It should be an SX. It might be a DX, but I'm pretty sure it's an SX, considering we've got this over here, which again is also very interesting, which we'll come back to. People are probably already shouting out in the comments about it. But these are 32-bit through and through CPUs, at least as far as I can remember. I mean, I know there were IBM and Cyrix and other manufacturers that did come up with sort of hampered designs that were meant for plugging into 386 motherboards that use 386SX CPUs. The 386SX is a cut-down CPU that was designed for roughly converted 286 motherboards. So internally it's a 32-bit CPU, but externally it's got, and I'm going to mix this up, I'm pretty sure, 16-bit data and 24-bit address bus. But this is 32 bits through and through, so it's very interesting to see these smaller slots. Maybe they are 32 bits wide. Not really sure, but this particular card here is maxed out, at least as far as I know. I don't actually know how much memory is installed in the system. 8 megabytes is my guess, because those are 1 megabyte SIMs there. So, yeah, there might be some on the motherboard itself, but I'm not really sure. Here's our video card, which is a VGA Wonder. You can see up there, that is a feature connector. And I believe that actually is S-Video. But look at all the chips on this. You know, a modern video card has all of this pretty much combined into one chip, with the exception of the video memory. But you can see we've got the BIOS, there's a RAM DAC on here somewhere, random access memory, digital to analog converter, there's a couple of clock crystals there for generating the different video modes, and of course we have the video memory, and there are a number of little supporting components as well, including a bunch of tantrum capacitors, which hopefully will not blow up when I turn the system on. If we go ahead and continue having a look in here, there's the keyboard controller right down there. Over here, hidden behind this bundle of wires, is the IDE connection, which we're not using because it's got a SCSI controller in it. So I guess there's one thing. Floppy port is right there. There's some more supporting logic all over this. That would have been integrated with probably, I'm going to get it wrong again, the North Bridge on a modern system, possibly the South Bridge. And then, whoa, what is this? So this slot right here is very interesting. This is yet another system on card design. which, again, I'm surprised to see this in a 486, but that's how they designed it. It's got this big shield behind it as well, which looks like it might even be part of the bracket at the front, which is very interesting. So you have to take out 2 screws in order to pull this out. Again, we've got some supporting cache chips here. Looks like some rework done on that one right there, which was a common thing. Wouldn't be surprised if I pull this off if I see a whole bunch of more rework. Very vast empty space over here. Not entirely sure what that would have been used for, but it's there nonetheless. Lots of traces running over to that side for this, looks like a batch of surface mount resistors. Maybe a couple surface mount capacitors as well. Some tantalum caps, some other things there, and then we come to the interesting bit, and that is the Intel 486 CPU, which I don't think has been upgraded, so it should be the original 25 MHz 486SX. And beside that is, what is this? A Waytec 4167 math coprocessor. Now this is basically a 487 on steroids. It's a beefed up design that I believe could even stand on its own as a microprocessor if the software took advantage of it. Now Waytec, I don't really know much about the Waytec company, just that if I remember correctly they were pretty much history by the time 1995 rolled along, because the Pentium came around and the 486DX became more popular and more cost effective. It cost less. So those CPUs integrated the floating point unit, which is what this is, basically, for all intents and purposes, but they integrated this onto the CPU, which pretty much left them out in the dust. And I know Waytec tried to come out with some own CPU designs of their own. I don't know if any of them ever came to fruition. Somebody who knows more about the Waytec company can probably tell me. Alright, so let me put the cover back on, and we're going to go ahead and power this thing up and see it in operation, and hopefully it happens to still work. Okay, so we are right now pulling roughly about 155 watts, 160 watts from the wall. Let's see what happens when we power this thing on. So we'll change our video switch and go ahead and hit the power switch. About 260, so it's about 100 watts worth of power that this thing pulls. So let's see. Here's our VGA Wonder ROM BIOS. It is a Phoenix. Fortunately, it looks like it's not the Phoenix A486. What a buggy BIOS that is. Invalid configuration information. Well, I expected that. These run setup. There's our SCSI. Do I have there? Strike F1 to continue, but you'll notice no prompts to enter the BIOS. And that's where this floppy comes in. This is one of those lovely systems that requires a boot floppy to get to the system setup utility. If I remember to do it, I'll probably take an image of this floppy and post it, because if I remember right, this one was fairly difficult to get my hands on. Okay, so I thought it was a boot floppy, but it turns out it's not. So I don't know. I guess it's supposed to be a boot disk, but this one isn't. The way that it's set up, I might make a boot disk. But anyway, so you can see our warnings here, blah, blah, blah. And here's the setup utility. So we'll go ahead and we'll set this to some reasonably sane values. Base and extended is not set up right. I can tell you that right away. But, so it is October 26th, so 10. This is another one of those lovely, not necessarily Y2K compliant systems. I think it's Y2K compliant. Wait a second here. Yeah, it should be. It is Y2K compliant. And the time is 18:21:35. And we'll say 21:36. It's probably closer to reality. That's set correctly. This should be 7168 for a total of 7808, so about 7 megabytes, which is very interesting. That should be good. Change that to bidirectional. Now, do we get another set here? I don't think so. So, save and exit. I'm going to remove this floppy from the drive, so it doesn't try and boot to it, and we'll see what happens. That's much better. Of course, I'm going to have to figure out where the CMOS battery is. It might be in that power supply. So again, I'm booting the hard drive. Other interesting utilities on this floppy, which come with the system. They would be on the diagnostics disc that come with your system. Speed 425 changes the CPU speed. So you can do that, you can check it, or you can change it. This is slow, and it will change the CPU speed. You don't really get any indication that it's done so, but if we check it again, you should be able to see it set to slow. We'll change it back to fast. Hopefully it doesn't crash the system. I don't remember what MCache 425 does. Something for the cache, if I remember correctly. So, alright. Cache control utility. Cache conflicts and resolving them. Selections for non-cacheable memory. So we'll go ahead and just put that in there. And just leave it alone. There's no reason to do much. KP. Enter the keyboard password. Escape to quit. Oh, that's interesting. Hopefully I didn't just lock something out by running that. Is there anything else? Is there anything else on this floppy? I don't remember. SCSI and non-standard.sys. I believe that's actually for the SCSI controller. SmartCheck.cps. Don't really know what the rest of that is. So okay, let's go back to the C drive. And I don't remember if I formatted this. Yes, I must have. So it looks like there's nothing really loaded on this system, so I will be loading more onto it at a later time. It's running DOS 622. My ultimate plan is to probably run something interesting on this, possibly even something like Tandy DeskMate. I don't know. I think it'd look kind of cool. I have a digital computer running Tandy DeskMate, or some other possible operating system of choice that's not Windows. Digital Research Gem might fit right at home on this, but I'm not sure. I'll have to decide on that one. Or, who knows, it might just be another Windows 3.1 machine by the time it's all said and done. But either way, that's going to do it for this video, so thank you for watching. If you have any comments, feel free to leave them down below. And this is CP666 signing off, and I hope to see you next time. Till then. That clip that you heard while it was spinning down was actually the auto head parking mechanism.